Hello, I'm Philip Hughes, Chair of the Maroondah Interfaith Network in Melbourne. The network acknowledges that people in Maroondah, as in many parts of Australia, come from many ethnic and religious backgrounds. Our role is to build community by recognising our common human aims and goals while seeking to understand our differences. This series of seminars is about the common human goal of happiness and explores how people of different backgrounds conceive that goal and seek to find it. Given all of that, one of the things that I've found in my own research, it's surveying lots and lots of young people in schools, is that many people don't feel that they really belong anywhere. About 10% of students affirmed the sense that they don't really feel that they belong. And certainly that was associated with another sentence too that they were affirming. I'm hurting deep inside and nothing seems to help. 16% of young people, and that was out of 10,000. Across 10,000, so it's thousands of young people feel that way. And again, many different factors seem to affect that. 23% of people aged 45 in our surveys also affirmed that. We've asked young people too about what they do with the challenges of life. What happens when they meet times which don't fit their ideals of happiness or satisfaction in life. And many try to deal with it, first of all, by themselves. And the most common response was music. We went back to young people in interviews and said, well, how does that actually work for you? And they told us, some of them told us about the way in which music reflected their emotions and their feelings. Others told us that they could actually change their feelings a little bit by their choice of music. But music was there to help in that process. They also told us that there's many other ways of dealing with the challenges. Young kids would go outside and kick a ball. That's their way of, often physical activity helps them in dealing with things. But television can be an escape. Shopping is another escape that some of us use some of the time. And of course many people in Australia mask the challenges of life through alcohol. But they do turn to friends, they turn to family. And it was interesting that it was at that point in our interviews and in our surveys that religious faith actually made an appearance for many of them. There are many who said that they turned to prayer. What was interesting was quite a few of those who said that they turned to prayer had also told us that they didn't believe in God. So again, we asked the question, what does that mean? What does prayer mean for you? And the general answer was, well, you never know. It's always worth a try.
Pascal's right.
There we are, yes, Pascal's right, yeah. Yes. So that's some of the different ways in which people meet the challenges of life.
Challenges. So what are challenges? As Philip indicated, people often turn to music when they're challenged, especially young people. I remember when I was young, I would just go to my room, close the door and just listen to music. But people often, turn to their friends or a community. Or other mechanisms to cope with challenges in life. Now, for many of us, whether we're Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, faith remains at the forefront of our strength, right? So what is the challenge? Just some initial ideas. Actually, I was thinking about this morning, and this is what I put. A challenge is a chance to either open our hearts to others and ourselves, or close them and remain fixated on the same old patterns of worry, fear, and anxiety. So a challenge is, to me, personally, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity. And we can go two ways about it. Now, life's challenges are simply a chance to respond to the inevitable. Things change. It's part of life, whether we're prepared or not. It could happen at any time. It's also a watershed moment and an event marking. It's an event marking a unique and important transition in which we can either grow and expand in love or fall back into those familiar patterns of fear and hatred. This is something my friend told me yesterday, because I told him that I'll be coming here and talking about this topic, and I said, "What's your take on this?" And this is what he told me. His name's Peter, he's an old friend of mine. He said, "Every day we will be faced with people pressing our buttons in different ways, and we can choose always on how we are going to step up to the occasion or step down." Okay, what do Buddhists do? What do Buddhists do? Buddhists train the mind to transform adversity into awakening. Even during the time of the Buddha, he was challenged with many different things, but he used that as an opportunity to tap into his own awareness of reality. Sometimes we don't face challenges. We're afraid we kind of take a step back. But sometimes taking a step forward might be the right way to go. And that's what the Buddha actually did. Now, Buddhism, particularly the tradition I follow, which is Mahayana, applies mind training techniques and contemplative practices to help us deal with the obstacles of life, from those we encounter at work and the everyday, to the inevitable disappointments of sorrow, death, and conflicting emotions. The Buddha himself, you probably know he was a prince, and on one occasion he went out of the palace, and as the story goes, he saw an old man, a sick man, or a sick person, and he saw a dead person, and he started asking questions like, these are some challenges that I'm going to face. What is the meaning of all this? Now, adverse or difficult circumstances and the challenges we face in life are the basic building blocks of conditioned existence. And the Buddha, seeing these things, realized that, hey, I'm not going to be here forever. Sooner or later, I'm going to die. Anything that arises is subject to change. Anything that is subject to change is suffering. Right? All phenomena, or all the building blocks in life, whether it's anything really, anything that is subject to change is suffering. It's impermanent. What did the Buddha do? He looked inward for a solution. He looked inwardly for a solution. This is a quote from a famous Tibetan master. He says, if you look closely at your normal activities, you will discover that they do not deserve the trust you accord them. Sometimes when we get fixated on something or see something as being so substantially real when it's not, we suffer. So starting to see things more objectively and for what they are, we can learn to let go and achieve a peace in our hearts. And that's what the Buddha did. This is the way he dealt with his own challenges. We all have different challenges, but most of them begin within, not without. Because we create our own reality. We create our own reality. I mean, I could see that cup that you're holding there as a vessel to drink water. Another person might see it as, a place to put your pens or flowers. I mean, we create our own reality. And if we see things as being so real when they're not, we may tend to suffer. So he says, if you look closely your normal activities, you'll discover that you do not deserve to trust. They do not deserve the trust you accord them. You are not the agent in power, but the victim of your projections. We create our own reality. You know, I was worried the other day. I just had a kidney transplant exactly a year ago, on the 20th of February, and I just started working recently, and you know, and I was so worried. I had to be at 3 places at one time. I had to be at the clinic, I had to be teaching on the day, and I was actually supposed to be in a meeting and had student orientation all scheduled at the same time. Think of it now, it's just like a dream. But at the time, I was so fixated on that moment that I was suffering. It was a challenge. My friend said to me, why worry about it? At the end of the day, is it really going to matter? Is it really going to matter? So you are not the agent in power, but the victim of your projections. Whether I worried about it or not would not have made any difference. Really, you think of it. Whether I worried about it or not would have not made any difference whatsoever. Now, Santideva, he was a very famous bodhisattva who studied at Nalanda University. And this is his take on life's challenges and our changing circumstances. If there is a remedy when trouble strikes, what reason is there for despondency? And if there is no help for it, what use is there in being sad? I think the Dalai Lama said something along these lines as well. You know, if there's a problem, yeah, you can start worrying about it and deal with it. But if you can't change the situation, what's the point of worrying, right? So on that day, I remember going to work, and I was thinking, oh God, I have to go to clinic. You know, for a transplant patient. It's hard getting back into work. You go to the clinic nearly every day at the beginning. You know, and your workplace has got to be understanding. And I was like really stressed. I had to be at the clinic. I had to be in the class. I had to be at student orientation. But at the end of the day, worrying about it didn't make any difference. So what do Buddhists do instead? They watch the mind and see things as being really impermanent and not worth worrying about at all. Because at the end of the day, none of this is going to matter. Really. That's a picture of Santideva. Okay, so reality and the correct vision. We cannot create a world to suit ourselves or the way we understand things. I mean, we can't put cushions on our feet, can we, when we walk outside? It's still going to be rough, whether we feel it or not. This does not suggest that we should not try and make the world a better place. The Buddhist ideal, especially that of a bodhisattva, unambiguously proposes trying to improve our world to the best of our ability, but that starts from within. If you can't deal with your own conflicts, there's no way you can tackle the challenges in life and actually open yourselves to others. Nonetheless, this ideal or vision is founded upon the truth that the world is an imperfect place and will likely to remain that way. And it's going to be like that tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But the difference begins from within our own minds, and that's why the Buddhist path is an inward, retrospective look. Because if you can't deal with your own shit, you're not going to deal with the shit that you face outside. And this is, look, as long as there is ignorance, pride, jealousy, aversion, attachment, these things that we harbour within, we'll be living in a world, one in which is imperfect. So we start by changing our minds, and that's the best way to deal with challenges in life. Thank you, everyone.
The Christian tradition offers us the opportunity to belong in a community which offers empathy, which offers solidarity, which offers community, all the richness of community. Participating in a Christian tradition is to participate in a body which breathes in and out. It breathes in gathered worship. It gathers together. That's the opportunity for us to come together to share what's been going on in our life, what's been happening, what's coming up, what are we anxious about, to engage with others, to be offered that opportunity for genuine empathy for those who can offer it. And the Christian community breathes out in what we use this Christian word of mission. Breathe out in mission, which in my understanding is to participate and proclaim the presence of God in the world, the presence of the divine in the world. Not to fly a flag or to go out there and claim this as, in that kind of colonial sense of, great, you're all Christians now because I've come here and pointed you to it. No. The divine, the sacred is present in our world, and it's our call to participate in whatever is going on. So this is this breathing in and breathing out in community, the practice of community. And belonging in a Christian community offers us, as I say, a personal experience of gathering, of belonging, of meeting people and sharing each other's stories, sharing each other's challenges, but also it also offers us a cosmic story of divine solidarity. So the Christian story is that the divine actually experienced what it is to be human. That's the nub of the Christian story. Humanity in all its finitude, in all its vulnerability, in all its fragility, in all of its darkness, in all of its wounds, in all of its joys, in all of its love. The divine knows what that is and understands that. So there's this cosmic story of empathy, of solidarity, of participation that the Christian tradition offers us. Philip, in the opening comments, made mention of the surveys around, or the research around young people, and the value of music within that. In their experience of belonging. That doesn't surprise me at all. That is fundamentally my experience. And Mary, stepping onto your territory for a moment, you might say more about this with greater clarity, but in terms of human development, I think my experience is that it's absolutely essential to feel, to identify with some sort of tribe, some sort of village, something bigger than just ourselves, some sort of story bigger than just ourselves. And I guess developmentally to try on those masks of, is this who I am? Is this who I want to be? And to allow, or to use those masks as a way of testing our engagement with the wider world. Is this who I might be? So for a young person, I'll speak personally in my experience, for me that became about identifying with a particular musical subculture. And so you might use words like, as I say, tribe or village. As when I was growing up, we would use words like scene. So for me it was the punk music scene. And what participating in the punk music scene offered me was the chance to try on an aesthetic, a hairstyle, a way of engaging in the world as to how I would inhabit the space and present a face to the world. It allowed me to try on political views, some sort of political engagement with how I'm going to participate in the world. It allowed me to test sort of various attitudes to social issues and so on, and a personal individual independence as well. So that's what that particular identification, and for others it was identification with particular sports subculture or so on, whatever it was. Young people, I think, are helped greatly by identifying with particular subcultures. It's interesting that I would suggest that within Christianity there is particular forms of Western Christianity. There, I think, is an attempt to create a distinct Christian subculture with its own musical styles, its own dress codes and so on. And I guess we'd see that particularly in evangelical circles and so on. The dominant musical Christian musical industry comes out of Sydney and has a particular flavour to it. I would suggest that's an attempt to create a particular Christian subculture. Interestingly, I think the Christian faith, and particularly the primary writer of the New Testament in Paul, actually writes against that. He has this great line out of Galatians where he talks about there is no longer male nor female, there is no longer Jew nor Greek, there is no longer slave or free man. And so he's saying there is no longer these tribal categories, biological gender, there is no longer religious categories, there is no longer political categories. The part of the Christian faith is actually to embody a unity with all. So beyond those kind of tribal boundaries. Not to create a new kind of super tribe, not to come in and say, well, Christianity is the answer for all of you and come on board and fly this flag, but actually it is in fact belonging to a greater solidarity with the great cosmic story, actually through the eradication of all tribal boundaries. And we practice that in our breathing in of worship when we gather around the open table, which we celebrate as communion, where we say it doesn't matter who your mama is, doesn't matter who your dad is, it doesn't matter your country of origin, it doesn't matter about your ethnicity, your gender, your expression, identity expression, all have a place here and all are welcome. And I think that it's primarily, the Christian faith primarily offers the practice of solidarity and community, which is our way of dealing with the challenges and joys of life.
The thing is, we can get stressed by just daily things in life. And we can sometimes feel like we're becoming a little bit unravelled and we don't kind of recognise what's going on, and we can feel this kind of stress. Okay. I want you to hold this thought. Epictetus, the Greek philosopher, said, people are not disturbed by the things that happen, but by the view they take of them. People are not disturbed by the things that happen, but by the view they take of them. I think Albert Ellis wanted to claim that, but Epictetus said it first. So hold that thought. What happens with the challenges of life? If we are in a life-death situation right now and our lives are threatened, our bodies will react. So we've got this autonomic nervous system that looks after our digestion, our breathing, so we don't have to worry about it, we're just breathing, we don't have to think about it. What happens is, if we're in a life-death situation, the adrenaline will start to pump, various systems will boost up the immune system, other systems will sort of shut down, and we will be able to respond in amazing ways. I think we're wonderfully made to deal with these life-death kind of challenges. The difficulty is that we've learned to turn on this stress mechanism just with posting a letter to somebody at night. Mm-hmm. Okay? And this is incredibly unhelpful for us and all of the illnesses that we experience, because we don't necessarily deal well with the challenges. So how do we reduce stress? There was some research around these three ways they talked about. One is having an increased sense of personal control. Another is having adequate information. Notice it says adequate, not comprehensive. If we Google everything, that may not help us. So we do well to have information, but not too much, not too little. And certainly our support networks. There was research around the importance of our support networks and our communities and so on to reduce the stress. Steve Covey, who wrote a few books, talked about the circle of influence and the circle of concern. So if we imagine the circle of influence is all the things that we have control over. Okay, when you got up, what you ate for breakfast, lunch, etc. And then there's a circle of concern. So these are the things that we worry about and are concerned about, but are actually not under our control. And so dealing with the challenges is a little bit about dealing with what is within our control and the letting go process of what is outside of our control. And we feel much more empowered if we do that. Now, some things, part of it's under our control and part's not. So an issue like sleep, we can have good habits around sleep, how much coffee and chocolate, we talked about chocolate the first time, how much, what we have before bed, but we can't actually determine the moment we fall asleep. So if we start to worry about that, that's out of our control, and that's actually kind of not helpful for us. There's options, I suppose, for challenging. I'd like you to think about the challenges in life. Perhaps put your hand up towards your face. This is the challenges right in life. Now, there's two ways to kind of deal with this. This is in our way, it's in our focus, it's causing us problems. One might be about how we reduce that stress and take it away and change them. But let's put the hand there again. Maybe the circumstances we can't alter easily. Maybe there's chronic pain, health issues, family issues. The other way of dealing with it is to shift our focus. So move your head away. Okay, so these problems of life are still here, but now we can perhaps focus on other things. And so part of that, and not just as a distraction, but to actually focus and shift our focus onto the things in life which are of meaning and purpose, and the things that give us pleasure. And we talked about, and music and faith and family and friends and those. And that kind of helps us deal with challenges that are difficult to actually change, but we actually focus in a different direction, and we let it go. So this is just some of the song, not all of it's applicable, from the movie Frozen, and the theme that comes through, let it go, and some of the words there, and it's funny how some distance makes everything seem small, and the fears that once controlled me can't get to me at all. It's time to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. Let it go, and so on. And perhaps to finish with, paraphrase here, the Peterson translation from Matthew. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it, Jesus said. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Thank you. Just a few thoughts about dealing with the challenges of life.
I would like to reflect on my life, how I deal with challenges, and my families too. When I was little, I was always ill at the point of death. And I remember Mom and Dad always told me, this life is an ocean of suffering. It's quite very pessimistic. But don't worry, son. We got another ocean of love that is God. So I think they prepared me for death because I was ill. But later on, when I grew up, they still repeated this. And I thought, what's wrong? But until later on, when I graduated high school, I realized that they wanted me to become a priest. So not getting married, go do something else. That's the intention. But I used to believe that life was suffering. Until later on, when I came here and I tried to do something with this, and I met Mary, Sister Mary here, and I asked her about crisis because I was in crisis. And she explained to me what crisis really means. And she said, she used Chinese. She said, the word for crisis, 危机, is combined by two characters. One is a danger. You are facing a danger now. The other one is opportunity. You have an opportunity to make something different. I learned from there. And I said, that's wonderful. So my crisis can be an opportunity. So I took it. And when I came here, I studied hard. Before leaving Vietnam, my teacher, my superior told me, Tien, try to get a PhD as soon as you can and come back here. If you don't get one, don't ever come back. That's a big challenge. Big challenge. And then I came here, I studied hard, day and night, and I don't think, you can believe it. 24 hours, always with headphones, even during my sleep, because I believe that I can study during my sleep. And then after a few years, I did a few things, and I became very sick. And the doctor told me, Tien, we are very sorry, you are too young. That really brought me into a crisis of faith. And then I make myself ready for that by isolating myself completely from everyone for several weeks. And it was an agony, it was living in hell, because I just imagine that on my own, shutting the door, having no contact with anyone, get ready for death. But one person came to me, Emily, a social worker, and she knew about my health because I got very complicated health issues. And she said, "Now look, Tien, take your courage." And then she left. After a week, she came back, gave me a stack of paper like this. She said, "Go to your doctor. If it is okay, I can give you half of my liver, one of my kidneys, so you can live a while." And that was an awakening moment. I said, "That's it. I can live." Opened the door, went to the market, Vietnamese Kapramata in Sydney, had two big bowls of noodles, instant noodles. And then I enjoyed it. The first time I tasted the delicious food, and everything there, I could taste it because I have that courage to live. So now coming back to this one, I think our faith, later on I see that our Catholic or Christian faith is supported, and our life is supported by faith, hope, and love. 3 virtues. Just last year, I went home to celebrate my 25th anniversary and my parents' 65th anniversary of marriage. And I learned that they left the north for the south to get away from communism. And they walked a long journey for over a month in the jungle. And they had our eldest brother, who was only 2 months old. And he was dying. Dad said to Mom, "We have to go back." Mom said, "No, keep focus, walking." So during the night, they walk. During the day, they they hid themselves in the jungle for over months. And I asked them, "What gave you that courage to walk?" They said, "Faith." Faith gave us the power and hope, because we knew that something is better is coming. And I interviewed many Vietnamese refugees here in Australia. When they left Vietnam on the boat, what they bring up with them? Normally a statue of the Buddha, or rosary, or statue of Our Lady. That's the first thing. Second thing they brought with them was gold. Normally they hid somewhere here. What do you call this one? Yeah. So only 2 things they brought with them. Faith in the Buddha, or in Our Lady, or in God, gave them the power. And of course, hope for a better life. But for me now, I could see that love, like Paul said, faith, hope, and love remains. The love that I believe that God loves me unconditionally. Out of God's love, I exist. And this gives me power to overcome. Like Norm said, I just finished my thesis. It took me over 6 years. And during these 6 years, I didn't want to study because, I got enough. I told my supervisor, my superior, I had enough. I was dying because of studying. So I don't want to do it again. But he said, no, we need you to do something with this. So I said, okay, if the society needs me, I do it. But suffering, the challenges. I wanted to give up so many times. But every time I wanted to give up, someone came to me and said, Tien, I can't help. Sarah was one of them. Norm was also one. I can't help. I can read. I can give you some correction. This love really gave me the courage and power to move on. And for me, God's love is very vague. If I cannot experience Emily, if I cannot experience the offer given by Norm or Sarah or many people here in this community, I don't think I could complete my work. So now coming back to this love, I also have another experience for Vietnamese, those who lost their loved ones during the escape. They live in that agony for years, until they experience the love of the community, especially they offer a mass for the dead, and then their heart rests in peace. Otherwise, they struggle in their lives, cannot overcome the challenges of loss. So the community at large is the love of God. So when people experience that, they overcome challenges. So that's my experience.